Hello, everyone. How are you doing tonight? Tonight, we will be doing some investigations. Yes, we will. As you all know, Sean Puffy Combs is definitely back in the news. We have Courtney Marie in here. Hello. How are you? Yes, we are live early. I know I set the live for a little bit later. However, we're just going to go live early. I did catch a story here on the internet, and it was pretty much about the the Kim Porter and the whole situation. And a lot of people are really not focusing in on Mary J. Blige. And like I said, when I had did my commentary on Mary J., I said that, there was a statement. Actually, let me see if I can find that article where she had said that, if it wasn't for him, she would have turned away from, you know, music or whatever. And so the reason why we're going down this road is because the 17-year-old that come forward and said that, she was around and, she had there were some allegations between her, allegedly, between her and Diddy. And I think a lot of people were like trying to shame her or whatever when she had come out with her story. It's a lot, but we're definitely going to dive into some things. We're going to dive into some things. Let's see. Okay, actually, first, we can go ahead and just pull up our documents that we're going to be looking at tonight. And that is actually going to be the lawsuit. It's actually gonna be the lawsuit. So let me find the window that it's on. It's a, let me see. All right, let me see how I can bring this up so you guys can see it as well. Oh, here it is right here. Okay, so hopefully you all are able to see it. Are you able to see it? Here, let me blow it. Let me do it up a little bit. All right, here, okay, let me click that button. All right, let me bring it up some more. Okay, are you guys able to see it now? Okay, hopefully you all are able to see it. This is what we're going to be going over tonight. And so I want you guys to really pay attention, okay? Go ahead and get your beverages, get settled in. We do have little bubble gums in here, so if you guys want one, just let me know. I'll get you one. There is bottles of water in the back. Okay. Now, keep in mind, this is the Jane Doe versus Sean Combs, Harve Pierre, the third assailant, Daddy's House Recordings, Inc., and Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Inc. Okay. It's a complaint, jury trial demand. So this is a civil case. It's a complaint and jury trial demand. Okay. So trigger warning: this document contains highly graphic information of a S nature, including blank blank. Plaintiff Jane Doe, Ms. Doe hereby alleges as follows. Preliminary statement on November 16th. Okay, so we're going to do number one. On November 16th, 2023, Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie, filed a 35-page lawsuit in which she exposed Sean Combs for subjecting her to nearly a decade of physical and emotional abuse, punctuated by the great uh, as trafficking and being forced to engage in alternatives fueled non-consensual as encounters with other men. Ordinarily, when a lawsuit such as Ms. Ventura's is filed that involves events that took place long ago, witnesses are few and far between, and evidence hard to muster. Not so for the claims brought against Mr. Combs. Within minutes of the filing, salient facts of Ms. Ventura's claims were confirmed by various witnesses, including a rival musician whose car Mr. Combs blew up, as well as various individuals who observed Mr. Combs beat Ms. Ventura. Three, only a few days later, two lawsuits were filed against Mr. Combs, and one plaintiff, Joy Dickerson Neal, alleged that Mr. Combs drugged and sexually assaulted her when she was a college student. The other lawsuit accused Ms. Combs and singer Aaron Hall of forcing the plaintiff and other unidentified woman into non consensual sex. Okay, now this is what I want to reread. So we're going to read three over again. Only a few days later, two other lawsuits were filed against Mr. Combs, and one plaintiff, Joy Dickerson Neal, alleged that Mr. Combs drugged and sexually assaulted her when she was a college student. The other lawsuit accused Ms. Combs and singer Aaron Hall of forcing the plaintiff and another unidentified woman into non consensual sex. Okay, so when we are talking about that, we are talking about you do not have permission and no means no, right? And I feel like once you have partaken or whatever, once you are under the influence and, you know, you can't properly say yeah, then, yeah, I feel like that's a violation in my opinion from observation. Everything is alleged, okay? And we're given our observation, just solely speculation. All right, so let's continue. Number four, at the same time, a fourth lawsuit was filed, this one against Mr. Combs' companies and defendant Harve Pierre, the longtime president of Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings, Inc. Bad Boy. The suit alleged that Mr. Pierre used his position of power at Bad Boy to groom an SA, his former assistant, and that Bad Boy looked the other way at the time. Can we talk about that? Something is going on, and everybody allegedly looks the other way because I don't know why. Because we will have to ask them; they will have to answer for that, right? Okay, now get into this. Number five, this is the fifth lawsuit against Mr. Combs in the last 3 weeks. Incredibly, the allegations brought by Ms. Doe are in many ways even more egregious than those brought by his prior victims. Six, specifically in 2003, when she was only 17 years old and in the 11th grade, Ms. Doe was trafficked and gang art by Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and the third assailant. In short, when she was just a teenager, Miss Doe met Mr. Pierre at the third assailant in the lounge. Hold on. When she was just a teenager, Miss Doe met Mr. Pierre and the third assailant in a lounge in the Detroit, Michigan area. While at the lounge, Miss Pierre insisted that he was best friends with Mr. Combs and even called Mr. Combs with Miss Doe. So in that statement right there, it's like, you know, when people know somebody famous and they get to brag, so it's kind of like bragging rights, like, yeah, I know this person and da 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 da. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I don't have to flirt. I don't have to lie. I don't have to flex. I don't have to front. Here, I'll call him right now. So Mr. Combs convinced Miss Doe, who was half his age at the time, to accompany Mr. Pierre and the third assailant on a private jet to come to his studio in New York City. So now you have, okay, let's just say that she was starstruck. She's 17 years old. When I was 17 years old, I had people that I looked up to that were celebrities that I was like, oh my gosh. Like I was starstruck. So just imagine, it's like, oh my gosh, okay, what an opportunity. She hadn't grown, she hadn't developed, her mind hadn't fully developed into a grown woman's thinking. Okay, this is 17. She wasn't 21, she wasn't 22, she wasn't 25. So 17, just think about when you were 17. What were your thoughts like? What were you doing? So get into this. Before they left for the private jet, Mr. Pierre smoked crack cocaine in a bathroom at the lounge, in which he also SA Miss Doe by forcing her to give him a West. The third assailant is a, we're gonna do this right here. Give me 1 second. All right, so the third assailant is a pseudonym. When the name of the third assailant is revealed during discovery, plaintiff will seek to amend the complaint to replace the synonym pseudonym. Mr. Pierre, third assailant, and other gentlemen then escorted the high schooler to a private jet, which flew them to Teterboro, New Jersey. There were SUVs awaiting the group at Teterboro, and the four of them were driven to Daddy's house recording studio, a studio famously owned and opened by Mr. Combs and Bad Boy. So, in this particular situation, you have the president or the CEO, president, or whatever his title was, and then you have Diddy. So they both are owners. So, okay, boom. Now they're on the plane, right? Now they convinced her to get on the plane, allegedly. Okay. So while at the studio, Mr. Combs and his associates, including Mr. Pierre, plied Miss Doe with, drugs and alcohol. As the night wore on, the 17-year-old Miss Doe became more and more inebriated, eventually to the point that she could not possibly have consented to having S with anyone, much less someone twice her age. While at the studio, Miss Doe was gang bleed by Mr. Combs, the third assailant, and Mr. Pierre in that order. While Mr. Combs was blank, Miss Doe, he complained that he could not get off unless she pinched his nipples as hard as she could. Mr. Combs then watched on as third assailant, who Miss Doe had not even realized had begun to blank with her. Blank Miss Doe as she told him to stop. After third assailant was finished, Mr. Pierre took his turn at blank Miss Doe and Miss Doe, and then violently forced her to give him OS, during which Miss Doe was choking and struggling to breathe. When Mr. Pierre finished, he left Miss Doe in the bathroom alone. Miss Doe fell into the fetal position and lay on the floor. Her blank was in pain. Finally, after her period of time, Miss Doe regained her bearings. However, she could barely stand up following the blank and had to be helped to walk out of the building and back into a car. She was taken back to an airport and flown back to Michigan. However, she has very limited recollection of her transport home and only remembers being in the car sometime early in the morning. Unlike many victims who have come forward after decades, Ms. Doe can prove that she not only met Mr. Combs on the night in question, but in his studio in New York City with him on that night. Remember, when viewing these, Ms. Doe was 17 years old. So I guess this is a good kind of stopping point. We can just look at these photos. Okay, you have her right here in the Dolce& and Gabbana shirt. She's sitting on his lap. Then she's pointing to the P&D. I guess this is a photo of the office or a fireplace or something. And then that's her in the studio. So you guys let me know what you think. Let me know what you think, how you think it went. And I think that there's more coming. They say a male has come forward. Did they really? Oh my goodness. You know what? With the male, oh, okay, hold on. Okay, so I do see the male victim comes forward. Oh, hold on. Let me get up on here. All right, give me 1 second. Let me. Oh my goodness. Okay, so okay, so here, let me do this. Okay. So give me 1 second. Everything is just kind of like rumble jumble all in the place. Okay, so bear with me. Oh, oh no. Okay, so this was 9 hours ago. Okay, so they're saying that one of his male victims have come forward. Okay. So we'll get to the male victim here in a minute, okay? All right. So number 8 is Miss Doe has lived with her memories of this fateful night for 20 years, during which time she has suffered extreme emotional distress that has impacted nearly every aspect of Miss Doe's face has been blurred in the following pictures for the purpose of anonymity. Her life and personal relationships, given the brave women who have come forward against Ms. Combs and Mr. Pierre in recent weeks, Ms. Doe is doing the same. To that end, Ms. Doe brings this action seeking injunctive, declaratory, and monetary relief against defendants in violation of the Victims of Gender Motivated Violence Protection Law, Gender Motivated Violence Act, NYC Admin Code 10-1101, established SEQ, VGM, VPL. Okay, so jurisdiction and venue. 10. The court has jurisdiction over this matter pursuant to 28 USC 1332, as this action involves citizens of different states and the amount in controversy in this matter exceeds $75,000. The court has supplemental jurisdiction over plaintiff related claims arising under state and city law pursuant to 28 USC 1367A, 11 pursuant to 28 USC 1391B. Venue is proper in this court because a substantial part of the events or omissions giving rise to this action, including the unlawful employment practices and intentional and negligent torturous conduct alleged herein, occurred in this district. The parties, the plaintiff, Jane Doe, is a citizen of Canada. Defendant Sean Combs is a citizen of the state of California. Defendant Harve Pierre is a citizen of the state of New York. Defendant of the third assailant is upon information and belief a citizen of the state of New York. Defendant Daddy's House Recordings Inc. Daddy's House is a music, media, and entertainment company founded and owned by defendant Sean Combs. Daddy's House is incorporated and headquartered in New York, New York. During the relevant time period, Daddy's House and or Sean Combs owned and operated the Daddy's House recording studio, wherein Miss Doe was blanked by Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and third assailant. Defendant Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings Inc. Bad Boy is a music media and entertainment company founded and owned by defendant Sean Combs. Bad Boy is incorporated and headquartered in New York, New York during the relevant time period. Bad Boy and/or Sean Combs owned and operated the Daddy's House recording studio, wherein Miss Doe was blanked by Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and third assailant. So, factual allegations. In 2003, Ms. Doe was a 17-year-old 11th grader residing in a suburb of Detroit, Michigan. At the time, Mr. Combs was 34 years old, twice the age of Ms. Doe, and one of the most well-known and influential music artists of all time. A decade earlier, Mr. Combs founded Bad Boy and installed his longtime friend, Mr. Pierre, into the role of president. At the time, Mr. Combs had connections to Michigan, including, among others, to the Black Mafia family, BMF, a drug trafficking and money laundering organization that is rumored to have seeded Bad Boy. According, accordingly, upon information and belief, Mr. Combs' associates, including Mr. Pierre and the third assailant, spent significant time in and around Detroit, Michigan. On one evening between the spring and fall of 2003, Miss Doe was out with friends. It was not uncommon for her and her friends to frequent bars and lounges in the Detroit area. Certain of Miss D's friends were well connected with people in the industry. On the evening in question, Miss Doe was with friends in a lounge when she was approached by who she later learned was Mr. Pierre. Mr. Pierre was with his own friends, including the third assailant. Mr. Pierre, the third assailant, and their friends were dressed in suits. Mr. Pierre repeatedly complimented Miss Doe's appearance, saying that she was hot, among other things. He then began talking about his self described best friend and brother, Mr. Combs. Specifically, Mr. Pierre continually stated that Mr. Combs would love to meet Miss Doe. Mr. Perry even called Combs and Mr. Combs and put Miss Doe on the line. Mr. Combs told Miss Doe that he would love to meet her and that she should accompany Mr. Pierre to New York City in a private jet. Shortly thereafter, Mr. Pierre directed Miss Doe to go with him into the bathroom at the lounge. On the inside of the bathroom, Mr. Pierre began to smoke crack cocaine from what appeared to be an aluminum can. After he finished smoking crack, Mr. Pierre suddenly took out his blank, demanded that Miss Doe blank his blank, and forced Miss Doe's head down to perform blank blank on him. After blank blank in Miss Doe, Mr. Pierre directed her to accompany him to the third assailant and a third member of their group to an airport in Pontiac, Michigan, where Signature, a fixed base operator, had prepared a jet to take the four of them to New York City. Upon information and belief, the private jet landed at Teterboro Airport. Upon departing the jet, two black SUVs were awaiting the group. Ms. Doe got into the SUV with Mr. Pierre and the third assailant, and the other member of the group went in the second SUV. The SUVs brought the group to Daddy's house, recording studio and hangout owned and operated by Mr. Combs and Bad Boy. When Miss Doe arrived, she was escorted into the building where she distinctly remembers seeing a sign for the company, Technicolor. Upon entering the studio, Ms. Doe first encountered Mr. Combs. At the time she had arrived, a female recording artist was using the studio as Mr. Combs and her parents watched on. Huh. She finished up shortly after Ms. Doe arrived and left. While still in the studio section of Daddy's house, Mr. Combs asked Miss Doe to sit on his lap and take a picture. A copy of the photograph is below. Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and the third assailant began to play Miss Doe, a 17-year-old child. Hold on. Oh, Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, and the third assailant began to ply Miss Doe, a 17-year-old child at the time, with copious amounts of drugs and alcohol. While the evening became a blur, Miss Doe recalled Mr. Combs, Mr. Pierre, the third assailant, on her incessantly stroking her body, asking her to see her blank, and telling her how hot and sexy she was. Various other pictures were taken in the studio that night, leaving no doubt that Miss Doe was in Mr. Combs' New York City studio with Mr. Combs on the night she was blanked. Now let's get into this. Are you guys here with me? Okay. All right. We have the Golden Child here. Hi, the Golden Child says hi, Queen. Butterflies and the hearts. Hey, Norris Tony, how are you doing? All right. Let's keep going. All right. So as the night wore on, the 17-year-old Miss Doe became more and more inebriated, eventually to the point that she could not possibly have consented to having blank with anyone, much less someone twice her age. Nevertheless, that evening, Mr. Combs directed Miss Doe to accompany him to the bathroom in the studio. Once there, Mr. Combs removes Miss Doe's skirt and underwear and blanked her from behind with his blank while she hung over the sink. Miss Doe did not consent to having blank with Mr. Combs, but he continued thrusting. At some point, Mr. Combs turned Miss Doe around to face him. He told her that he could not orgasm and asked her to squeeze his nipples as hard as he could to help him get off. He then turned her back around and continued to blank her. By this point, Miss Doe was coming in and out of consciousness because of the drugs and alcohol she had been given by defendants. Her next memory was looking up into the mirror above the sink to find that the third assailant had replaced Mr. Combs and was blanking her from behind. Mr. Combs was watching the third assailant blank Miss Doe from a chair outside of the bathroom. Now, with this right here, with the watching, I've gotta, Miss Ventura said the same thing, right? At this point, Miss Doe mustered the energy to tell the third assailant to stop and that she did not want to be blanking with him. She didn't want to be having blank with him. The third assailant did not stop and continued to blank Miss Doe, who did not have the strength to force him off of her. After the third assailant was finished, he was replaced by Mr. Pierre, who began by having non-consensual blank blank with Miss Doe before violently forcing her to give him blank blank. During the later part of the blank blank, Mr. Pierre forced his blank into Mrs. Doe's mouth without her consent. Miss Doe remembers that Mr. Pierre was sweaty and that she had difficulty breathing. When Mr. Pierre finished, he left Miss Doe in the bathroom alone. Miss Doe fell into the fetal position and lay on the floor while her blank was in pain. Finally, after a period of time, Miss Doe regained her bearings. However, she could barely stand up following the blank and had to be helped to walk out of the building and back into a car. She was taken back to an airport, flown back to Michigan. However, she was very limited recollection of her transport home and only remembers being in her car. Sometime early in the morning, her underwear was missing as a result of being blanked by Mr. Combs. Mr. Pierre and the third assailant, Ms. Doe, suffered emotional distress and feel shame that have plagued her life and personal relationships for 20 years. All right, so we're at page 11. Let me see how many pages this is. Okay, so it's not that many. So we're at page 11. So it says, Ms. Doe knew that speaking out against defendants would be extremely difficult and that she would likely be subjected to retaliation and defamatory slurs and attacks. However, in November 2023, Ms. Doe read about a lawsuit filed against Mr. Combs by Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie. All right, so oh, okay, so however, in November 2023, Ms. Doe read about a lawsuit filed against Mr. Combs by Cassandra Ventura, aka Cassie. Ms. Ventura's suit described a decade of physical, sexual, and mental abuse. Most triggering for Ms. Doe was reading about Ms. Ventura's allegations of ST and being forced to have blank with other men against her will. Ms. Doe obviously understands that she too had been ST and that Mr. Combs' behavior in forcing women into non-consensual blank was not an isolated incident or unique only to Ms. Ventura. All right. So then, just days later, Ms. Doe read about a case filed against Mr. Pierre. The suit alleged that Mr. Pierre used his position of power at Bad Boy to groom and SA his former assistant. Seeing two other women bravely speak up against Mr. Combs and Mr. Pierre, respectively, gave Ms. Doe the confidence to tell her story as well. As such, she files the suit. First cause of action violation of the victim of gender motivated violence protection law. And that's NYC Admin Code 101101 EST SEQ VGM VPL. Okay. So plaintiff repeats and re-allege each and every allegation in all of the preceding paragraphs as if fully set forth herein. The above described conduct of defendant Mr. Combs, including but not limited to Mr. Combs' SA of plaintiffs in New York City, constitutes a crime of violence against plaintiff and is a crime of violence motivated by gender as defined in 10 1103. The term crime of violence means an act or series of acts that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony against a person as defined in state or federal law, or that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony against property as defined in state or federal law if the conduct presents a serious risk of physical injury to another. Those acts have actually resulted in criminal charges, prosecution, or conviction, and the term crime of violence motivated by gender means a crime of violence committed because of gender or on the basis of gender and due at least in part to an animus based on the victim's gender. Of described conduct of defendant Mr. Pierre, including but not limited to Mr. Pierre as aid of plaintiff in New York City constitutes a crime of violence against plaintiff is a crime of violence motivated by gender as defined in 101103. The term crime of violence means an act or series of acts that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony against a person as defined in state or federal law, or that would constitute a misdemeanor or felony against property as defined in state or federal law if the conduct presents a serious risk of physical injury to another, whether or not those acts have actually resulted in criminal charges, prosecution, or conviction, and the term crime of okay, so it just pretty much repeats that what the crimes were and how they were, charge, right? Okay, so all right, so violence motivated by gender. Okay, da, 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 da. Okay, so defendants, Bad Boy Entertainment Holdings Inc. enabled defendants commission of the crime of violence motivated by gender and is therefore also liable under the BGM VPL as a direct and proximate result of the aforementioned crime of violence and gender motivated violence. Plaintiff has sustained and will continue to sustain monetary damages, physical injury, pain, and suffering, and serious psychological and emotional distress, entitling her to an award of compensatory, compens- compensatory and punitive damages, injunctive and declaratory relief, attorney's fees and costs, and other remedies at this court may deem appropriate damages as set forth in 10-1104. The above described conduct of defendant constitutes a sexual offense as defined in Article 130 of the New York Penal Law. Pursuant to 10-1105A, this cause of action is timely because it is commenced within 2 years and 6 months after September 1st, 2022. Prayer for relief, where for plaintiff praise judgment be entered in her favor against defendant, and each of them as follows: for a money judgment representing compensatory damages, including consequential damages, lost wages, earnings, and all other sums of money together with interest on these amounts, according to proof. Girl, they want interest. Okay, according to proof. For a money judgment for mental pain and anguish and severe emotional distress, according to proof. For punitive and exemplary damages, according to proof. For attorney's fees and costs, for prejudgment and post-judgment interest, and for such other and further relief as the court may deem just and proper. Okay. And honey, there's that stuff right there, honey. Now listen, that's a lot. That is a lot. And so I did find this tape that I do want to play for you all. So give me 1 second as I bring this up. I'm gonna play this because Mary J. Blige, she does not have clean hands. Okay, let's get into this.
Diddy is on his fourth lawsuit for abuse, assault, among other things, in the past recent weeks, and there have been blind.
Hey y'all, I'm back and I'm back because I have more thoughts on the whole situation with the lawsuit Cassie filed against Diddy.
Diddy is on his fourth lawsuit for abuse, assault, among other things, in the past recent weeks, and there have been blind items and rumors that he has abused and assaulted men as well. Here is a new blind item. I suspect the soon to step forward male victim of SA by this A-list mogul will not be the last man to do so. And again, this is allegedly Sean Diddy Combs. And the related headline reads, Sean Diddy Combs accused of gang R-word in fourth lawsuit. Everything we know about the allegations. The rapper denied the sickening allegations, saying that accusers are looking for a quick payday. Sean Diddy Combs faces his fourth misconduct lawsuit in less than 1 month. The Bad Boy Entertainment CEO was accused most recently by a woman who says she was R-worded by him and others as a teenager. The plaintiff in the civil case, who filed the suit under the pseudonym Jane Doe, alleges that Combs, his longtime producing partner Harve Pierre, and a third man trafficked and gang R-worded her in 2003 when she was a 17-year-old high school junior. The I'll Be Missing You rapper 54 fiercely denied the new allegations, saying in a statement, "I did not do any of the awful things being alleged. I will fight for my name, my family, and for the truth." The new allegation follows the bombshell lawsuit against him by his ex, singer Cassie, in which she claims she was trapped in a cycle of abuse, violence, and trafficking, including being R-worded in 2018. Diddy settled the lawsuit, but there are two others, in addition to this new one, pending. Diddy is on his fourth lawsuit for abuse, assault, among other things, in the past.
Hey y'all, I'm back, and I'm back because I have more thoughts on the whole situation with the lawsuit Cassie filed against Diddy. Now, there have been rumors for years, but we never knew the exact level of depravity that was going on and just how sick and twisted it was. And we also never knew that there were potentially male victims, I should say, because although we heard rumors questioning Diddy's sexuality, it was always as if it was consensual things. It was never as if there were victims. And so, with that being said, every time these cases come out with, you know, Epstein, Harvey Weinstein, what's the white actor that played in Kevin Spacey? Kevin Spacey. Well, actually, that's the only one I know where a male victim came forward was with Kevin Spacey. I think that was his main accusers were males. But all the other ones, Harvey Weinstein, Jeffrey Epstein, Diddy, and the list, R. Kelly, all these people were alleged to have male victims.
So that's why I was kind of confused when I heard Kurt saying that. So that's why I was kind of confused when I heard Kurt saying that Mary was pot girl. Because at that time, she was my girl. At that time, I'm 15, 16 years old, and she flying me in to see her. I'm 15, 16 years old, and she flying me in. And you know what it is when a girl back up on you, you young and shit, and I'm trying to show her that she ain't phasing me. I'm hard as goddamn. She's backing up against me. This Mary J. Blige. And quite naturally, I mean, you supposed to say you had sex with people on camera? Anyway, whatever. I'm not quite sure, but relation.
Okay, so we do have audio of this confession. And this is the guy that said that, Mary J. Blige, it was some things that happened, allegedly. Hi, Cyrus. How are you? Here, let me go ahead and bring this up right quick. You guys hang tight 1 second. Let me pull this up. Oh no. Okay, so it won't let me upload there. Give me 1 second. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up a different way. All right, so check this out, y'all.
I was in the room and Shook called me. He said, come upstairs for a minute. And my god brother was there with me. He said, come up by yourself. So when he said that, it's either it's another girl upstairs for me, or somebody probably finna get their ass whooped upstairs, something. I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, oh man, here we go. I get up to the room and it's a table full of girls sitting around the table. And they all eating, everybody eating, and they ordering food, and some of the homies are in the room. And Misa's sitting there. Misa is Puffy's baby mother. Devontae's, one of Devontae's baby mama, and I think Casey's baby mama was up there. No, it wasn't. It was Devontae's baby mama and Mary and a couple other chicks that was at the table. And we talking and we drinking. And, you know, I'm kind of excited. Again, I'm from the west side of Chicago, and who doesn't look up to Mary J. Blige as, like, you know, one of the queens, you know, of that time. She's a queen of R&B at that time, at least in the hood. And we up there chilling and drinking. And I think after I left for a little while, we was talking. I think I left out, and Suge called me back up to the room. He said, come back upstairs, man. Old girl wants to see you. The fuck is old girl? I'm thinking one of the other girls that was at the table. And I get up there to the room. Suge's in his room, and Lisa's sitting on the bed with a sheet wrapped around her. You know, and you can kind of see like a nice body, and she got this sheet wrapped around her. And Mary's sitting on the couch. So I know the girl that he in the bed with don't want me. So I went in, he closed the door and shit, and I sit down and I start talking to Mary. And the inside, I'm about to lose it, because I'm actually sitting here talking to Mary. She's sitting on the couch and shit, and we ordered some food and some more drinks. And somebody knocked on the door. She ran and kind of damn near jumped behind the couch hiding. I'm looking like, what your problem is? And she make sure that's not Kay. Kay. You know, and I'm like, oh man, I don't care. You know, I'm talking to him. I don't care who he is. You ain't got to be running and jumping and did it. But she was actually talking about KC. She was thinking that KC, she had like this postpartum type, you know, the shit that people in the army probably go through when they hit bangs. Like when it came to KC at that time. You know, and she's sitting on the couch and shit. I'm like, you know, you ain't got to worry about him. You know, you straight. I'm 15, 16 years old. And she laying on the couch. And I'm sitting on the other end, and she laid down on the couch and put her head in my lap. I'm like, damn. He can't be talking about Mary. He was talking about she wanted me to come back up here, and now she on my lap. Okay, what is this going to end up to? And she stayed a couple more hours. And we decided to go in the other room because it was a suite. We went in another room and laid down. And she laid down with me, and she kind of like backed up against me. And every time she backed up against me, I would move away and shit, you know. And from that time, I had an opportunity to go out to New York and visit her a couple more times. But, you know, that's why I was kind of confused when I heard Kurt saying that Mary was pot girl. Because at that time, she was my girl. I'm 15, 16 years old, and she flying me in to see her.
don't know, you guys. You guys let me know what you think. We have come to an hour, and it has been amazing with you all. Thank you so much for the engagement. Shout out to our family over on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram. We'll be back with our review of Married to Medicine and also the phone calls with Ernesto, Shirley Strawberry's husband. I'm not really sure if they've been divorced already, but we'll definitely be hitting you with some great content. We want to keep our shows at an hour mark, just so that it's easy to watch back. So, on that note, thank you so much. Happy holidays, and I'll see you soon. So long.
Girls need love, yeah. Girls need love, girls need love. Let me tell you something. Girls need love.